Studio 39. My name is Lynn Schwartz, and I was the guest artist and director for the extended day project Revolution. Joining me is Dr. Ye-Sung Soo, who is our musical director, and Dr. Soo is also on the faculty of PVA. And we are also delighted to have joined us tonight Mr. Tom Gay, playing hammer, dulcimer, and fiddle. Also, I think in the audience is Ann Jensen. Where is Ann? Ann, can you stand up? Thank you. Ann is a wonderful writer, historical writer. Her ancestral home is one of the oldest in Annapolis, the Sands House. And one of our students was inspired by her ancestor and wrote a monologue about her. So Ann visited our classroom and brought lots of inspiring stories for us. So Ann, thank you so much for doing that.
And thank you for allowing me.
Anytime. Revolution is part of our Page to Stage series, which gives written words voice. So for this project, the students had to research Annapolis history during the Revolutionary War period. They then had to identify historical figures that resonated with them, and some of them reimagined some characters who might have lived during that time. They then wrote monologues, songs, lyrics, and even learned to play the drums.
I want to point out that our students have a variety of creative interests and come from several of the PVA majors: writing, dance, acting, scene design, and music. Some of our students have not performed before, and some have not had much exposure with creative writing or music composition. It's always exciting to witness a student's growth when they are brave enough to try their hand at something new. In addition, these students had to work fast. We met about 3 hours per week for a semester, which is not much time considering the magnitude of the task.
We also would like to thank Studio 39's assistant principal, Jan Reed, our tech team, Leon French and Alexander Rothschild, who have supported us through this process. And because we had to change our date, Mr. Paul Dembowski and Caroline Van Sicklen were also very helpful in getting us to schedule that date. Revolution runs about 70 minutes. So we hope that you enjoy the show. Thank you very much.
July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands,
which have connected with them and of them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth
the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them,
a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America,
In General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions due.
In the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare
that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states.
that they are absolved of all allegiance to the British Crown, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence,
we
Mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Signed, Samuel Chase, Maryland.
Signed, William Paca, Maryland.
Signed, Thomas Stone, Maryland.
Signed, Charles Carroll of Carrollton, Maryland.
Much has happened since 1776. Our story focuses on our local history, Annapolis, 1781. 2 years before the American Revolution ends in 1783. Tensions run high around these parts, and it's no wonder with 2 armed British ships off the mouth of the Severn. They are watching and waiting.
We still bask in the glow of the golden age of Annapolis. We are not a large town, but we have many grand buildings. Some say we are the genteelest town in North America.
It's true. We do have our share of fashionable women and handsome men who furnish their houses with the best Europe offers.
These neighbors enjoy horse racing, gambling, playing cards, and fancy balls. Vessels arrive from near and far with goods like nuts, pineapples, and wine from Madeira.
There are other goods carried to our ports, indentured servants and slaves.
Yes, we have fertile soil and a large lake economy. With the Chesapeake and its waters, we bustle with water trades too. Oyster packing, boat building, and sailmaking. But we are a town, a country on the verge of change.
The Sons of Liberty are active here. As you've heard, we boast 4 signers of the Declaration of Independence.
People debate their political views, their opposition or loyalty to Britain, in the taverns, in family sitting rooms, and at the balls. Their opinions are spread through passionate letters printed in our newspaper, the Maryland Gazette.
And now Lafayette has arrived with his regiments. Lafayette's presence is certainly enlivening the city's social scene. His troops feel at home here, for we are quite hospitable.
Hovering over all of this activity is fear, dissension, and anxiety. We all worry that there will be an attack. My name is Edward Jameson Wallace. I'm the proprietor of Wallace Tavern located on Cornhill Street. I am what you call a reimagined character, sprouting from this teenager's mind in 2017. In my imagination, Wallace Tavern was established by my father, Benjamin Thomas Wallace. Now that both my father and mother are gone, I'm proud to continue what my father began. Men, even young boys, come here to deliver retrieved mail, to read the news, converse over a few cups of hard cider and a fish sandwich. It may not be Middleton's Tavern, or as high-end as Reynolds Tavern. Lafayette and General George Washington do not come here, but their soldiers do. My customers are ordinary townspeople and patriots, but I don't like those highfalutin loyalists anyways. And before he moved to Philadelphia a few years back, you could find Charles Wilson Peale, the portrait painter, with a group of Sons of Liberty trading ideas and making plans. I won't lie, there is strife. Disagreements break out in the streets. Patriots versus loyalists. The strain between families and friends are beginning to pull us apart. Father and son, neighbor against neighbor, and some in the middle who don't know what to do. A couple of events happened several years ago that got the people of Annapolis riled up. And now that further time has passed, the anti-British sentiments are only getting stronger. First was the burning of the Peggy Stewart, and then all that business with Zachariah Hood.
I was in London on business when the Gazette started stirring this pot against me. I blame many, but Jonas Green, the publisher of the Gazette, is one for certain.
You can't imagine how this Stamp Act upset my husband, Jonas. The act placed duties on newspapers, pamphlets, and legal documents of any kind. This was most difficult for publishers and lawyers who could not carry on business without paying dues. The tax had put our newspaper out of business. Jonas, who announced the new act in the Gazette, emphasized its threat by printing heavy black bars of mourning. He wanted people to understand the seriousness, to understand that the colony's rights in our Maryland newspaper were all in jeopardy.
Jonas Green kept it up. He printed weekly notices in the Gazette with anti-Stamp Act feelings. I didn't disagree, but it created a sense of menace in the town.
You must understand, I am a small-time merchant. I accepted the office of stamp distributor because if I thought if my country is to be taxed, it might as well be done by a native. Somebody's got to do it right, so why not me?
Some accused my Jonas of rabble-rousing, and I must say, he was passionate about the cause and his actions did incite outrage. But it was Chase who had been elected to the House of Delegates who organized the nasty demonstration.
Traitor! 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 Call it nasty if you will, but the Stamp Act was simply intolerable. Something had to be done.
Samuel Chase and others made an effigy of Hood. They paraded it through the streets of Annapolis all the way to the executioner's lot just outside the city gates. It was quite a sight to see.
Traitor! Traitor! Traitor!
The rickety cart made the dummy bounce, its head bobbing all the way to the gallows.
Where they hanged and burned it.
Hang him! Hang him! Hang him!
Then things really heated up. When Zachariah returned from Britain, in secret, under the cover of darkness, a mob of 400 rowdies descended upon his warehouse, which he'd rented for storing and distributing the stamps.
The crowd demolished it to the ground.
It was torn to pieces.
I wasn't sane. They'd be after my own hide, too.
Traitor! 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 My name is Samuel Chase. You might wonder why I went after Zachariah Hood. It was the principal. And yes, I admit it. I was the ringleader. You cannot silence me. Ever since I started practicing law in Annapolis, my colleagues called me Old Bacon Face. I guess it's because I am hot under the collar and never learned to hold my tongue. The choice words I spew out to my enemies burn. Intentional sizzle and pop. Gentlemen, I admit I was the one who committed the flames in effigy and pulled down the building Mr. Hood was going to use as storehouse for the paper. I openly disputed the parliamentary right to tax the colonies, so I gathered other like-minded patriots devoted to removing Mr. Hood. Our actions were quite effective, frightening Mr. Hood into fleeing to New York. But our New York Sons of Liberty hunted him down, forced him to resign his post. In my mind, he got off easy. For little hindsight, I can tell you that Mr. Hood would prove to be the first and last Stamp Act collector in Maryland. I'm quite proud of that fact.
As a modern artist, Charles Willson Peale is a person who inspires me. He, for a start, captured our history. He took hold of his talent and practiced and practiced. I would say he mastered it. And as the centuries go by, his art survived long after he died. Charles Willson Peale's story begins with his father, a teacher living in England who embezzled funds from the English government. He almost went to the chopping block, but managed to escape this fatal punishment. How, you may ask? Well, it was decided that instead he would have to travel across the seas to the colony, banished from his home country. But soon after his father arrived, he died, leaving his wife, his children, and Charles trying to survive. They had one family friend, a former pupil of his father, who went by the name of John Beale Wardley, and he made the young Peel an offer to be an apprentice to his saddler. But no one could have predicted that he would one day paint Wardley's dear sister. When Peel was young, only 21, he saw a painting and thought, I could do way better. And he began to paint. He was a man who wanted to understand how to capture history, to paint the people who started our nation's story. He was a leader, a captain at the Battle of Trenton. He painted our founding fathers, among them Washington, Lafayette, and Jefferson. This passion to paint, to express, to create, and relate art to others still resonates with me because you see, Peel still defines and defies, transcending history and time, and Peel in his day just continued to paint. But now I wonder, as the centuries go by, will our art survive after we die? I like to keep it real, so I'll take my cue from Peel and just continue to paint.
When I was young, I heard the world as it sung, and every sight that I saw was incredible. They caught my eye, the colors, they let me fly, let me make something incredible. When I was 9, my father one time they died, leaving for me to provide, and I climbed, Peel around the world, Peel around the world, determination and creation that would help to paint a nation, Peel around the world. At 21, I picked up a paintbrush and stunned everyone like firing from a gun. It was incredible. Yeah, I was an artist at heart, unsatisfied from the start of the undertaking. Life would call saddle making, but I knew that I could do better. Break away previous better, seek some supplies, advice, roll the dice. It'd be incredible, incredible, incredible. Peel around the world, Peel around the world, determination and creation that would help to paint a nation, Peel around the world. A son of liberty fought the insanity of the British calamity that made me do the man I'd be. Cool and collected, I set about the expected, effective, never dejected, portrayed men more respected, illustrated presidents, depicted representatives, outlined and sketched, etched people who make a difference, Renaissance men who then be evolutionary. The times that we lived in were revolutionary. I knew them all. I heard their stories through bristles and canvas. I would learn their lives in every picture, in every portrait. You will find, you will find, you will find, Peel around the world.
I am Anne Catherine Hoof Green. My family immigrated to America when I was no more than a babe. When I was 18, I married the love of my life, Jonas Green, and together we moved to Annapolis from Philadelphia. There, I bore 14 children, though only 6 survived infancy. We lived in a lovely home on Charles Street with a large room from which Jonas could run his newspaper, the Maryland Gazette. Oh, Jonas, he was always coming up with silly and improper poems and rhymes. And he was a troublemaker, would not be quiet about his beliefs, but how I loved him. He was a member of the prestigious Tuesday Club and even a printer protege to Benjamin Franklin himself. It was hard to make ends eat at times, but we were content. Suddenly, my love fell ill and died. I didn't know what to do.
General Marie Joseph Paul Yves Roche Gilbert Dumortier Marquis de Lafayette. Again? I am Major General Marie Joseph Paul Yves Roche Gilbert Dumortier Marquis de Lafayette. Je suis Français, a handsome Frenchman, a wealthy nobleman. I do not say this to be boastful. I tell you with all humility that this is true. I love you Americans, and I love the revolution and all it stands for. I am committed to liberty.
Lafayette, the Major General, has won the confidence and friendship of General George Washington. Lafayette fought with courage at the Battle of Brandywine, where he was injured.
A shot through the calf.
Lafayette at Valley Forge, where he lived with his soldiers during the coldest days of winter, and spent his own money to buy the men uniforms and muskets.
Why, you ask? I believe in this fight. I hate the British. General Washington has dispatched me to Annapolis in the spring of 1781 to collect intelligence. Washington is worried. Cornwallis, the British general, may be moving north. I will make my way on small boats in the Chesapeake Bay to determine the strength of the British ground and naval forces. Shall I tell you my other secret?
Oh, yes.
I am searching for that American traitor, Benedict Arnold. If I find him, I shall bring him to justice for betraying General Washington. Can you imagine the glory?
With my Jonas dead, how is my family to provide and to live if my husband wasn't here to provide for us? I decided I would be the one who would save my family. I put out a notice in my late husband's newspaper, telling our readers that from then on, I would be the one running the Gazette. People may have been wary of the women running a business, but boy did I show them wrong. There were many who said that I was the brains of the family. I ran that paper right up to my death, and you know what? I made it even more profitable than Jonas. In fact, I was so respected that even Mr. Charles Wilson Peel painted my portrait. Who would have known that I, a little Danish girl who married a troublesome printer, would have been even more successful than my husband? Though I never did live to see the American Revolution, I like to think that I stirred up my own little rebellion. My husband is gone, some children are too. Our income is lost, not sure what to do. Can't wallow in my sorrow, have to pick myself up and go. Yes, I'm a woman, living in a man's world, but I have to be strong for my sons and my girls. And so I will rise up from my despair. They may think I can't do it, but I simply don't care. It may be unheard of, it might be thought wrong, but we will prevail and move right along. Can't wallow in my sorrow, have to pick myself up. And so I will rise up from my despair. They think I
Despite these tumultuous times, it's a good life for me. I like the work at the tavern. Most would say I have no reason to complain. But what I don't tell people is that there is a deep hole in my heart. I was once betrothed to Celia Haverton Nottingham, wife of Loyalist Senator Nathaniel Nottingham. Celia was my childhood sweetheart and love of my life. Our parents were great friends, and her father worked as a bartender for my father right here at Wallace Tavern. Mr. and Mrs. Haverton used to bring Celia and her brother over, and we'd run along and play as my parents and the Havertons talked over tea. There was always something special about Celia. Celia used to be the most delightful girl, sweeter than a bag of sugar. When I heard a politician had also noticed her and wanted her for his wife, there was not much I could do. Nottingham was an older man, wealthy, and with connections. Like my family, the Havertons had patriot sympathies, but when push comes to shove, money wins the day. Celia did not protest the marriage, though I wished it so. I cannot understand her now. She, like her husband, spouts Loyalist talk, and if she passes me on the street, she holds her head high and does not speak. So I try to focus on what is important for our town, its people. As I've said, many of our citizens are angry. You now understand about Zachariah Hood and the Stamp Act, but there was another rising, also several years ago in 1774, which people have not forgotten, will never forget. You may know it as the burning of the Peggy Stewart.
Not much is known about me. I grew up with my mother and sister in a very cold place, Nova Scotia, but I am told of another place where it was warm in the summer and ships sailed lazily like gondolas on an Italian river. I like to imagine how my father's ship may have sailed among them, grand sails beating against the sky of the richest blue color and an old name painted on its side.
The Peggy Stewart was my brig, named for my young daughter. How do I, Anthony Stewart, begin to tell my tragic tale?
Tragic tale? That is not how I see it.
When I was young, before I could remember the Annapolis Heath, the sun, or the harbor, I went by this name, and my mother would call me into the parlor from the garden. She hasn't called me that name since she called me into her bedroom, where she packed her bags frantically. I still remember how she tucked my hair behind my ears and told me we were to leave in the night.
I regret the day my ship crossed the sea with 53 indentured servants, cargo goods, and the Peggy Stewart in poor condition. All I wanted to do was to have my ship docked, my cargo paid as the law provided, and help the sick indentured servants. I regret paying that mere tax that fueled the anger of so many. For little did I know, when anger is fueled, sparks fly, and will get you hit if you're close.
All I wanted, that mere tax to the British, poor it isn't me. I'll have you know that the Peggy Stewart carried 2,320 pounds of smuggled tea. Stewart paid the tea tax. Anthony Stewart was a loyalist, plain and simple. He was an enemy of the patriot party.
I never understood why one mistake was so unforgivable, especially when retaliation was committed in the heat of anger in just one moment.
Of course, Peggy would never come to understand. Did she know that her father had defied the colonial bans on importation once before, with the ship of good intent?
Angry humans will do anything to get satisfaction. They'll watch your every move and want an apology, but never accept it when it's given. Cruel thoughts turn into cruel words, into cruel actions. I had hoped to convince them that what I did was justifiable, but their anger blazed and the Peggy Stewart burned.
Truth be told, I did not recommend hacking it. The mob forced the burning of the Peggy Stewart, not me, nor our committee. But the mob, they'd had enough of Stewart's finagling, his anti-patriot views, his support of the king.
Once my charged ship sunk, I fled first, then my family when they could. My departure may have made the lawless mob think that they destroyed me, that I and the Peggy Stewart would be forgotten. But here is the irony that none of us, not me, nor my enemies, expected. Out of the ashes, the Peggy Stewart lives on in history. She rises out of the ashes, a phoenix, most often seen as a symbolic act of patriot heroism. but there are also those, still to this day, who think of me with sympathy.
You asked more about me. I shall tell you then. I was born on September 6, 1757 in France. My childhood was devastating. Troubling. My father died when I was a young boy. He was killed by the British while fighting in the 7 Years' War. My mother died. My grandfather too. 1 week apart. So you see, at 13 years of age, I was left as an orphan. But on the bright side, a wealthy orphan. I was on my own. I was so lonely. I joined the French army at 14, and I married at 16. But still, something kept calling to me. I was meant for more. I could feel the urge for glory, for heart-racing conflicts. The battlefield. Then came the outbreak of the American Revolution, the fight for independence. I knew what I would do. I would volunteer. I would help the colonies fight against France's old enemy, England. Objections were raised by King Louis XVI. I defied him. At 19, I bought my own ship and crew and enticed 15 other French officers to join me. We set sail for America. I'm a can-do kind of guy.
I am Lord Dunmore, last royal governor of the colony of Virginia. Among my proudest achievements was my offer of emancipation during the Revolution. For it was amid this turmoil that the British government saw the potential value of black soldiers while the rebels did not. We recognized the importance of slavery to the Annapolis area's economy. I remember that it was early October in the year 1775, and I issued a proclamation which would offer freedom not only to the slaves' rebellious planters, but also to indentured servants. So ironically enough, while their foolish masters dared to denounce the British, slaves renounced their owners and flocked to our lines, where they found refuge and freedom. Indeed, I believe that by the end of the war, some 5,000 Chesapeake slaves had escaped to us, and quite a few of them from Annapolis. Without aid from the blasted French, we would have won the war for sure.
Dear Diary, I know our times are uncertain. I know I should be grateful for my circumstances. I am not an indentured servant, nor destined to live my life as a slave, but I am a young woman without many choices, and I'm sick of sitting at home all day. At this point, I've sewn over 70 shirts and 24 overalls. I deserve a break. Instead, Mother tells me that I must cook and clean for the tavern's guests. Cooking, cleaning, sewing, it's all I do. There must be something more to my life than boiling potatoes and sweeping up after other people. I'm grateful for what I have, of course, but sometimes I just want to roam. Our new country is so large and full of mystery, but I'm stuck in the same house I've lived in my whole life. When I read, all of the stories tell of grand heroes, traveling the world and discovering things I can only imagine. Sometimes I wish I could be one of those heroes, wandering through the thick fog and rainforests, or padding through the dusty heat of a desert. Then I realize there's laundry to do, and I'm brought back to Mother's nagging and my sore feet. One day, I'll be far gone from here on my own adventures, I have to believe. One day, I'll be free.
A day at home with nothing to do but work, no play at all. A day at home to push a broom and I sew till I shake, clean till I ache, cook till I can't take anymore. Mother says it's what's best, push everything else aside. We'll win the war if you'll do chores and abide. I know time is scarce and tensions are high, but I can't take anymore. God forgive, I'm stepping out of the box I'm given to run through fields, fresh air, crisp with spring, and be free like I've dreamed. Brothers left to war, only a letter each month, but I think of him each day, his spirit like mine, hopes always high, but he is free. I can't take anymore. God forgive, I'm stepping out of the box I'm given for some quiet to shake these feelings of worry away and be free like I've dreamed.
Like many in our town, we were a waterman family. Our luck ran out when we rented a small home on Cornhill Street, near the Wallace Tavern. Many diseases fell over Annapolis, attacking the people. When it broke down the doors of my home, it attacked my family. My 2 sons, Thomas and Simon, fell ill, but survived it. My husband died, and 2 days later, I too joined the dead. Little did I know those who once lived could walk again amongst those who have not yet died. And so began a tale of 2 brothers. Once I was dead, I watched Thomas and Simon and followed them around, curious of the lives my dear sons chose. Those foolish boys spent their inheritance on brothels and ale, and when the money ran out, they threw large parties to obtain money from those who attended. Whispers began to roam around Cornhill Street about the things that occurred at these events. One night, long after the town had fallen to slumber, Thomas and Simon were wide awake with drunkenness, and there was an altercation. Thomas stumbled down the stairs quite by accident. When he could gather his wits, Simon crept down the staircase and froze on the last stair. He could not believe what he saw. Thomas was dead. Simon panicked over the loss of his brother. "I will be accused of murder," he said. "The townspeople will hate me." I believe Simon was not wrong about that. He needed a plan. He dragged the body of his brother into the basement and, I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, he took one of my husband's old and rusty axes and separated dear Thomas's head from his shoulders. He'd hoped to carry his brother's body piece by piece out of the house without notice. "I will go out this night," he said, "and I will dump the head of my brother into the Annapolis Harbor." And so, late that night, he did just that. But with all those snooping neighbors, it was too dangerous to dispose of any more outside of the house. The parties at our house stopped. So did the whispers. But then, like the disease that had plagued our house, a rancid smell spread over Cornhill Street, and once more the whispers began. The neighbors broke down the doors to my former home and began to look around where they were unwelcome. There, in the basement, they found poor Thomas's body lying in a shallow grave. Simon was found guilty of manslaughter and was sentenced to jail time, where he later died. Today, I walk the streets alongside my dear son, Thomas, but no one seems to notice me like they seem to notice my headless son.
My French officers and I are delighted with Annapolis. It is like Paris, the center of fashion, refinement, and luxury. The balls are splendid, and I must tell you, my officers and I have noticed that there are some very beautiful women who are quite fond of social time.
If I told you all something, would you swear not to judge? Of course not. I do not judge. Whatever could it be?
I can make no promises against my outward judgment, but I will try my hardest.
I'm thinking about leaving my husband.
You're doing what now?
I think I might leave my husband.
But why? He's so handsome.
I'm in pursuit of a different man.
Who?
Marie-Joseph Paul-Yves Roche Gilbert du Montier, Marquis de Lafayette.
Really rolls off the tongue. Is this the man I've heard so much about?
Indeed he is, and I am going to marry him.
You are so daft sometimes. You talk about leaving your husband, a man of stature and dollar, for a Frenchman, a bon nasty at that.
Lafayette is nothing of the kind. The divine Marquis de Lafayette is modest and polite with everything that is clever.
Does he not have a wife?
He also has a ship and lots of money. I don't care if he has a wife. If I don't see her, she doesn't exist.
Stick to what you know, sweetheart. A foreign foot like that is a danger to us all. I hear he was put in jail back in France.
Exiled for having disobeyed the king, but all is forgiven.
I hear he's very close to the General Washington himself.
Like father and son.
Well then, if that is where you have set your sights, then I shall pursue the General.
You all are so stupid, swooning over ugly celebrities like you have a chance to change your lives. I'm ashamed to have ever associated myself with you people.
As he walks down the street, my heart skips a beat as I see him smiling. A man so sure, so sleek.
I'm pretty sure he's just bald.
Recently, the strangest circumstances have unfolded. My love, Celia, has sent me a poem, and then another, and another. It has ignited the old spark in me. I must confess, I've imagined letter exchanges, bold secret meetings, a kiss in an alleyway. Nottingham has found the poems. He has called me a scoundrel, and worse, a rascal. He has challenged me to a duel. I am not inclined to engage him, but a man's character ought not to be sported with. It is a question of my honor. I am bound to accept him. He knows, Celia. It's been in the mouths of everybody in town.
I only told a few of my ladies.
People talk, Celia.
Yes, Edward, I'm aware that people talk, but
Even if we both survive the duel, your husband will have my tavern shut down.
And how does he plan on doing that?
Surely you are aware of the influence your husband has in this town. After all, isn't that why you left me 14 years ago?
I have never loved him.
You're missing the point, Celia. In order to right our wrongs, I am going to accept your husband's request.
Edward, it's you that I want.
For God's sake, Celia, do you think I wouldn't have spared any expense for you? I suppose none of that matters now.
Edward,
Go home, Celia.
There was a duel that afternoon. My husband was shot, Edward was shot. Neither lived. Both are gone from me. I wish I had been told as a child what to expect as a woman and a wife, told that I might look upon my husband, a man who was providing me with everything and would never feel love. I wish I had been told that I would live in the wake of this realization and disappointment. I thought that I might at least correspond with Edward. When Edward and I began to speak again, as we used to, I thought I had found a way to remain happy within the confines of the marriage and keep my promise I had made to God.
It is the hour. I will take my leave, Annapolis. We will move to Yorktown for a glorious battle. I believe it will end the war. The British surrender will be the high point of my military career. Imagine my American legacy.
During the war, Congress granted General George Washington powers equivalent to those of a dictator. He could have taken control of the new nation.
He did not.
Instead, in what is considered one of our nation's great acts of statesmanship, he voluntarily resigned his military commission to the Continental Congress at the State House in Annapolis.
After the war, Americans won their independence from England, but slaves did not gain freedom from their slaveholders. Emboldened by the revolutionary ideology, free blacks pressed for greater civil and political rights, publishing their pleas in our Maryland Gazette.
Liberty is our claim. Though our bodies differ in color from yours, yet our souls are similar in desire for freedom. Disparity in color, we conceive, can never constitute a disparity in rights.
The Revolutionary War ended in 1783. President Abraham Lincoln did not sign the Emancipation Proclamation, which began the process to end slavery, until 1863.
After the Revolution, Lafayette convinced George Washington that it was immoral not to free his slaves upon his death.
Washington followed Lafayette's advice.
The American Revolution raised hopes for a change, but there was not much change for women.
The 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which granted American women the right to vote, wasn't ratified until 1920.
Let us not forget the men and women of the American Revolution. Let us not forget what they have done for us, what they began.
Our founding fathers and mothers were not perfect.
They were people with emotions and problems and disagreements, just like us.
We hope to learn from our history and build upon it.
Because understanding our past, both the good and the bad, is the key to our future.
There's a lot of fighting now. I hope in the future we will try to listen more, especially to those who do not share our opinions.
I hope in the future there will be more art. The making and receiving of art in all of its forms is one of the best ways to communicate ideas.
Those of us standing on this stage hope people will come together, but also that we will all be treated fairly, that we will all have a voice, that we will all be given our unalienable rights.
We are still a relatively new country and still evolving.
We believe it is important to understand the differences between our past and present, because then hopefully we will continue to progress towards a more perfect union.